Welcome everyone to another edition of Pants Optional. It's our interview segment where we chat via Zoom with people in the comic book industry. We're still doing things during this epidemic, and that even if there aren't conventions, they're still out there moving forward and have projects in the works. Today, we're joined by Stephen Prince, who is, he produces a webcomic called Unemployed Ant, and he's also the creator of his own original IP, Monster Matador, which originally debuted over a 12-issue maxi series, led to the one shot featuring bats, all the various bats in the world of Tales from the World of Monster Matador, and he's coming back on June 2nd with a Kickstarter for a new miniseries, Monster Matador: Tales of the Matadors. So, welcome, Stephen. Thanks for taking the time and speaking with me tonight.
Thanks for having me, Jason. Good to see you.
Yeah, same here. I think the last time we saw each other at Long Beach, right?
Long Beach, yeah.
Okay, I know we did it San Diego, but then I was like, oh, I do remember connecting you real quick in Long Beach, and yeah. Have you done many conventions since then?
I did WonderCon. No, it's weird because so many people that I see, I tend to see at conventions because we've all got so much stuff going on. So probably the hardest thing right now is that, like, I don't get to see any of my comic friends,
Well, and you've been fortunate enough to appear on some of these virtual events online over the last month, 2 months or so. So I know you're still getting out there with a lot of the other creators who are feeling maybe a little stir crazy at home or missing that convention atmosphere. So
it's been interesting.
To connect with fans.
Yeah, it's been interesting. I did this Mainframe Con, which was a online virtual con, and just like you're doing it through Zoom with panels and everything, they're doing a follow-up, I guess, at the end of May that I just heard.
Okay.
And we did something on Facebook that was put together by Russell Nohelty and Neil Edmond called Alt FCBD, which was Alternate Free Comic Book Day. A bunch of indie creators like me got together, and we gave out free comics and had AMAs and panels, things like that. It was a lot of fun. So people are adapting, which is nice.
It's weird. This is becoming almost a new normal, that even as things start to ease on restrictions and things, that this is probably going to be something that's going to be incorporated into a way to connect with fans, and despite all this, because we don't know when conventions are coming back. I think that's going to be. I think that's one of the last phases. I mean, that's just too many people.
It's going to be a while, unfortunately, but yeah.
Let's talk about making comics. So for those that don't know, Monster Matador, this is a character you created. Visit monstermatador.com. Follow on @monstermatador on Twitter for more, and then definitely for details on the Kickstarter that we're going to be speaking about. But when did Monster Matador debut? And give us a little background on your lead character, Ramon Alejandro Estevez Guerrero.
Right. So Monster Matador has kind of a interesting genesis. It was actually, I created it as a writing exercise. And the idea was, like, I wanted to create something, iconic like Batman or whatever. And I've always been attracted to Matadors, the kind of the poetry, like the dance, or, everything about it. There's just something very iconic and fluid about it. And the name popped into my head, Monster Matador. And I just thought, wow, that's kind of a cool, there's something there, a matador that fights monsters. And I kind of put it aside because I'm like, well, clearly somebody must have done that already, but no one had. And at the time, this was probably, how long ago this is? It's probably like 2007, 2008.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, I'm primarily a writer. And at the time, my roommate was kind of encouraged me to draw. I used to draw when I was a kid, but I hadn't done it for a while, and I kind of I started doing it here and there. And fast forward a few years later, I got laid off from my job. I was in the toy business. I produced toy lines. I created toy lines for retail, for animation, and things like that. And when I lost my job, I kind of needed something to do. So I thought, well, I'll make comics. And that's kind of where Unemployment came from.
Okay.
But in the back of my head, I always wanted to do Monster Matador, but I wasn't quite there yet as an artist to draw it. And I eventually got to that point around 2015. And that's when I decided I was going to do kind of what I now refer to as Volume 1, which is essentially the origin of the Monster Matador, how Ramon came to fight the monsters. And the plan was always to kind of find the character by telling that story, and then do what I'm doing now, which is launching a Kickstarter with a creative team. So we have Fabio Alves, who drew the critically
From
acclaimed
Banjax.
and Alex Zeff, who's a colorist I found in Mexico City, who is brilliant.
You're doing some work with American
American mythology.
American mythology.
He just did a book called Hatchet, I think. Yeah, Hatchet,
Okay.
it's called. But essentially, one of the things I loved about comics growing up and reading the monthly books was like X-Men or whatever, is that you could kind of see the writers figuring out the story as they went along. And it took about 6 months to a year before everything kind of gelled. And you had like, the concept, when Stanley and Steve Ditko started Spider-Man or whatever, I think that first issue he's fighting aliens or something. I mean, you know what I mean? So
Right.
You kind of
It's an evolution.
It's an evolution. And I kind of wanted to do that with Matador, but the industry is very, very different right now, but I found out about Comixology Submit, and I thought it might be interesting to kind of do that digitally by myself and then launch it, wide with a new artist. And when it launches wide, it's essentially the first issue,
Right.
But there's all this background. It's like anything you come into that has background, that has depth, that has layer to it. So that was kind of the thinking behind it. So that's kind of the long and convoluted version of the origin of Monster Matador. But
And how's that been? I was gonna get to that with you bringing on Fabio and Alex.
Yeah.
That how is that now working with, relinquishing a little bit of those responsibilities and just trusting this creative team to, obviously, Fabio's work from Ryland's, Banjax artist, but in not having to take on illustrating duties and still, because you're also at the same time now taking on the crowdfunding aspect of it, where you need to manage everything like that. So maybe that's the trade-off. Or
it was interesting with Fabio. I didn't try him out. Like a lot of times when you're getting a new artist, you want them to draw the characters, you want to see what they're going to do.
Some
samples or whatever.
Okay.
With Fabio, something, I don't know why. Banjax, I loved, and I loved what he did on Banjax. I just kind of said, you know what, why don't you just jump into it? And, what the Matador looks like, what this world looks like, just start drawing,
Right.
And as more characters come along that I haven't drawn that come into the story, we'll do the designs there. And he came back with what the first page, which is now I think the second or third page of the book, but it's essentially this close-up of the Matador's face, and you pull back and you see he's being kind of carried by this giant fly, this giant monster that he's going to end up fighting, and he just nailed it. It's very rare when you see something in your head and then you translate it or an artist translate it and you go, that's it. That's what he looks like. That's what it is. And that's basically what Fabio did. And as an artist myself, I know that when you're going from a script to thumbnail to a page, that sometimes what might look good when you write it or sound good as you write it, sometimes as you're drawing it, you might find a different way, or you might find, some other little thing. And Fabio's been really great at that. And that's probably at the beginning, the one thing where I had a little bit of panic and anxiety about. There's a double page splash, and I originally had it where the Matador was punching up at the fly to kind of get loose. And Fabio did this thing where he actually had the Matador handcuffed by this resin.
Right.
And at first I was like, "What are you doing? That's not in the script, you know?" And I was like ready to write this like email, like, and then I kind of stopped and thought about it, and I thought, wait a minute, that's actually like really cool, because you're coming into this story and this is the first thing you see, and you're like, wow, wait a minute, how did this happen? How did he get handcuffed? How did it ups the drama. So with Fabio, as someone an artist at the level he's at, it's been really great because he contributes a lot, and his art adds it adds to the script, it complements it really well. So he's
Right,
been great.
right. And that's a great double page spread. It's like what, page 3 or something. It's like right away.
Yeah, it's
Um, and it
right
comes
up
into
there.
it. And yeah, and initially you're like, you're just kind of thrown into the action, like what's
Yeah,
happening. And yeah, no, it's
right.
fantastic. No, Fabio has really impressed me, and I'll have to we'll speak offline about something that he's doing for me,
Oh,
uh,
cool.
or did
Very
for
cool.
me. So,
Yeah. Oh, very
but
cool.
we'll speak offline because we haven't made any kind
Yeah.
of announcement yet. But so now with this new mini series, it's we're only 3 issues,
Mhm.
but we're getting introduced to a whole new crew of people. Not only a second Matador, but a bunch of people who are going to stand side by your protagonist. So, what can you tell us about the new faces we're going to see in this universe?
So a lot of with Monster Matador, at its core, it's basically the Matador's going from place to place fighting monsters, and if you do that every story, it just gets kind of boring. It just kind of gets stale. So one of the things I love doing is introducing new elements to it, new danger, new characters, new plot twists. It's really when you read it, I took kind of inspiration from Hellboy, in the sense that Mignola did a lot of these miniseries that you can read on their own, but if you read the whole, then it adds like a lot more depth and layers to the story and things like that.
Right.
And with comics, I think it's really challenging launching something. This is issue number 10. I think it's really hard to get a new reader to come in and say, "Oh, well, I hear this is great, but it's already issue 13 or it's already issue 20,
Sure.
whatever." And so with Tango, the idea is that we'll do these series of miniseries. And what that allows me to do too is to kind of jump around in time and then bring the whole thing together at some point.
Yeah.
But it's new reader friendly, and it allows us to explore like the greater world. And in this story, you've got this ragtag group of people who live in Puerto Barrios, Guatemala, whose city and whose country has been ravaged by this giant fly. We call it the Volagante, which is the monster name. And she has thousands and thousands of children that fly along with her and attack and whatnot. And there's Angelo, who is he helps the Matador in this, and his wife is pregnant, and she's just about ready to give birth. We have Gustavo, who's kind of like the town elder. Lita, who is this 80-year-old revolutionary who just like walks around with 2 huge machetes and kicks all kinds of ass. So there's all these characters, all these relationships, all this drama and stuff like that that's drawn into it. And then we throw another Matador into the mix, who is an old friend of Ramon's, who is also a monster Matador. And I thought that would be interesting, since this would be kind of like the first miniseries for a lot of people, the first issue for a lot of people. And I thought it would be interesting to contrast Ramon with someone else. So rather than kind of give all this exposition of like, oh, this is Ramon, blah, 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 you know, you get to show it in terms of how both of them, not just how they both fight, but also how they both interact with people and each other. So you get to see what kind of character he is.
Sure, sure. No, it's a really cool dynamic in reading it. And another thing for the people to know, that there's a lot of humor embedded in the Monster Matador series, and definitely the just like comically outlandish, just the stuff that only Stephen Prince could bring you. It's no, but it's just so fun. It's going to be great to see this come on Kickstarter.
So what I say is Godzilla meets Mad Max, you know, by way of a Santo movie and a telenovela. You know?
And you know what? When I was reading it again this time, right around the double splash page, or at least in the intro, I kept having visions of like Mothra and Godzilla, and you know, kind of little reminiscent little things like that, you know, with these with this new monster. But no, so it's gonna be great. So coming out on June 2nd, 30-day campaign.
30-day campaign.
And are people going to get the opportunity to snag any of your earlier Monster Matador issues in the campaign as like rewards or?
Yes. Yeah. Well, okay. Yeah. We've got a Kickstarter exclusive cover by Kyle Roberts, who's done a bunch of Kickstarter books. He did a book just recently called Electric Youth, which is really cool. We have all the original Matador books 1 through 12 as a digital reward, since that was how I put it out for the most part. We've got an original art reward, sketch cards, signed prints, and comics. So, which is the most important thing. But yeah.
Definitely. That's going to be great. When it comes to Kickstarter, now, have you run a campaign before? Did you do any for the earlier issues?
I've never run a Kickstarter campaign. It's interesting. I backed Kickstarter years ago, probably 5-6 years ago, and I think at the time it was still kind of a little bit new. And what I found was I would back stuff. It would take like a year to get it, if I got it. And it just kind of turned me off the whole thing. And then recently, probably in the past couple of years, I've met people like Charlie Stickney, who does a book
from White Ash, and
from White Ash, Russell Nohelty, who does like a million things.
He's a monster, man. That guy's all over the place.
Incredible, and they all do Kickstarters, and it's changed. You know, like people are doing these books. The quality of the books is amazing. And you're a lot of times the campaign ends, the funds get transferred, you get the digital comic, a couple of months later you get your comic. It's really become, people have started taking it very seriously, and the people that have succeeded are the ones that are like,
if you can nail down the process, if you can nail down how it works during the campaign, how you promote, how you push for stretch goals and all that. And then after post-campaign, learn about how long it takes to get the money in, and then everything, and factoring in any kind of, some artist got sick, I mean, there's a lot to,
they've helped.
But if you can understand the process. And I think the main thing that I found with Kickstarter campaigns is, regardless of how long it takes for someone to get their product to you, as long as you communicate with them.
Right, exactly, yeah.
That's the key. Some people, it take a year, whatever. As long as you're telling me that, we're still moving forward or whatever. It's that silence, though, that they'll be
Right, and
pissed
and
off
that's
at
the
you
thing.
after a
Yeah,
week. So
yeah, that's the thing is that you know, back in the day there was like no communication. Like right now, I had backed the book a few months back, and the artist got sick and whatever. But you know, they've been communicating, and it's like, okay, that, you know, as long as, yeah, as long as you keep people up to date. But I do want to mention that Tango the Matadors is done, so it will be.
so and that's going to be one of the things at the end, the risks and
Yeah,
risks, and
it's done. So basically, we're
it's
just,
just
you
this is
know,
just going to cover printing and
it's going to
distribution.
printing, and you know, so that's one of the things I wanted to do, especially the first time, because I think it's important to build your audience's trust. You know, you definitely don't want to stumble out of the gate your first time out. So
Sure, sure. It's easy for people to be a little hesitant on that,
right,
a little leery, but it's good to know. Have you already started on any kind of production on issue two, just in
yeah,
anticipation?
yeah, we are moving. Uh,
Okay.
we're halfway into issue number 2. The entire thing is written. Uh, I've written a first draft of follow up. So, you know, I mean,
All
I've
right.
got a lot of stories to tell. My hope is that we can keep doing this for a long time. So,
Right, right. Awesome. Well, I wish you all the best of luck with it, and
thanks.
I know it's going to launch great. I'm gonna make sure that I republish because we did a review
Tales, yeah,
Tails.
and the original series. I think you did the original series too,
I
or
have to look back,
you had rolled it in perhaps on it. But I know, because I know
but
I used to read.
definitely, it's hilarious. It brings back that fun feeling that comics would evoke in you. It's
Right.
just that joy of reading, joy of visual storytelling, the joy of just silliness, the joy of just some craziness, kind of an escape maybe at times, but um, it's tremendous stuff, and
Thank
we're
you.
definitely gonna promote the heck out of it because we want the world to know about Monster Matador and more about Stephen Prince and his creative team, Fabio Alves and Alex. Can you pronounce the last name? Is
Zeph.
it Zeph?
Yeah, you know, it's funny. We
Okay.
always communicate on Facebook, and I've been meaning to ask her how to actually pronounce it. So it's um, yeah.
But yeah, no, we'll definitely get this shared out there, and we look forward to more for Monster Matador. And if you want to stay up on the launch, any details leading up to the Kickstarter, be sure to go to monstermatador.com. Follow Monster Matador on Twitter at Monster Matador, and then we'll include all of Steven's social media info so you can follow him online and not miss a thing and back this campaign, support indie comics, support indie creators. So Steven, thanks for taking the time with me, man, and
Thanks for having me. Good to see you again.
definitely, and yeah, definitely good to see you. This is going to be the new normal for me, you know.
No, it's great.
I
This
can't
is, yeah,
interview you at conventions anymore, so
yeah.
at least it has this, so I can stay connected. And you're a great guy. I loved meeting you initially at San Diego last
San
year,
Diego, yeah, yeah.
and I'm really excited about what you got in the works here. So thanks again, and you have yourself a great night.
Thanks, you too.
All right.